Welcome to the Fate Spun channel, a place where every story will make you feel, wonder, and hold your breath. Are you ready? Then go ahead. Story number 1. The Shadow That Follows. I used to think insomnia was just sleepless nights and the occasional blurred line between reality and dreams. That changed 2 weeks ago when I moved into my new apartment. It started innocently enough. On my first night, I noticed a faint shadow on the far wall of my bedroom, just near the corner. I dismissed it as a trick of the streetlight filtering through the blinds. But every night, the shadow seemed to shift slightly. It wasn't just a static form. It appeared elongated, almost like it was stretching or moving ever so slightly closer. One night, after tossing and turning, I decided to investigate. Armed with my phone's flashlight, I shone the light into the corner. The shadow dissolved under the brightness, and I laughed at myself for being so paranoid. But when I turned off the flashlight, the shadow reappeared. Only now, it was on the wall closest to my bed. The next day, I stayed out of the apartment until late evening. I told myself it was to explore the neighborhood, but really I was avoiding that room. When I finally went to bed, exhaustion overtook my fear, and I drifted off until 3:12 a.m. when I woke up to the feeling of being watched. The shadow wasn't on the wall anymore. It was on the ceiling directly above me. I bolted upright, turned on every light in the apartment, and didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I tried Googling explanations. Strange drafts, reflections, even paranormal activity. Nothing gave me answers, and my landlord dismissed my concerns, saying, "It's an old building. Shadows play tricks." But the shadow wasn't just playing tricks. It was intentional. Last night, I decided to stay up with my phone's camera recording. I wanted proof, something to show someone, anyone, that I wasn't losing my mind. For hours, nothing happened. Then, at 3:12 a.m., the shadow shifted. The camera captured it all. The shadow slid down from the ceiling, stretched across the floor, and stopped just at the edge of my bed. It didn't move like light or darkness should. It moved like it was alive. When I reviewed the footage in the morning, I noticed something horrifying. As the shadow crept closer, a faint outline emerged. A face, almost human but hollow and dark, staring straight at the camera. I haven't gone back to the apartment since. I'm typing this from a motel room on the other side of town. But even here, I can't escape it. This morning, when I woke up, there was a faint shadow on the motel wall, shifting ever so slightly toward me. I don't know what it wants, but I know this. It's not done with me yet. Story number 2. The Door That Shouldn't Be. I moved into an old townhouse a month ago. It was charming and affordable, but one oddity stood out. A small, painted-over door at the end of the upstairs hallway. The landlord didn't mention it, and I found no key. It seemed like a sealed storage closet, so I ignored it. A week passed before I noticed the faint scratching. It came late at night, always around 2 a.m., soft and intermittent. I assumed it was mice and didn't think much of it, but the sound grew louder nightly. One evening, I followed the noise to the small door. The scratching came from behind it. Chilled but curious, I tried to open it, but it didn't budge. Frustrated, I returned to bed, though the noise lingered in my mind. Inspecting the door the next morning, I noticed faint scratches around the edges, like claw marks. That night, the scratching escalated into soft, deliberate knocks, as though someone or something wanted my attention. I called the landlord, who dismissed my concerns. "It's nothing, just leave it alone," she said, then hung up. Ignoring her advice, I borrowed a crowbar and decided to open it. The door resisted as if sealed intentionally, but after much effort, it cracked open. Behind it was a narrow staircase descending into darkness. This wasn't on the floor plan. The air was cold, carrying the faint scent of earth and decay. My flashlight in hand, I descended cautiously. At the bottom, I found a small dirt floor room with a single wooden chair in the center. The walls were covered in claw marks, etched deep into the surface, all leading upward. On the chair sat a dusty mirror. Approaching, my flashlight flickered. In its dim beam, my reflection appeared. But it wasn't me. The figure in the mirror smiled, its eyes wide and hollow. I ran upstairs, slamming the door shut and nailing it closed. I repainted it, restoring it to how I found it. I'm moving out tomorrow. But last night, as I lay in bed, I heard it again, the faint scratching behind the door. Story number 3. The radio that knew too much. It started when I found the old transistor radio at a flea market. It was vintage, battered, and cheap. Just the kind of thing I loved. The seller claimed it worked perfectly, so I brought it home, eager to add it to my growing collection of retro gadgets. The first night, I turned it on out of curiosity, and it hummed to life, static crackling as I fiddled with the dial. Suddenly, a voice broke through the noise, calm, measured, and clear. "Good evening, Alex," it said. I froze. My name wasn't exactly common, and the radio was an antique, incapable of modern digital tricks. Shaking it off as a coincidence, I turned the dial, but the voice persisted. "You're wondering how I know your name," it continued, as if reading my mind. Chills ran down my spine. I unplugged the radio, but the voice didn't stop. "Don't be afraid," it said. "I only want to help." Terrified, I threw the radio into the closet. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I convinced myself I was imagining things. Stress, lack of sleep. It could explain everything. Still, I avoided the closet. A week passed, and life returned to normal. Then, late one night, the voice returned. "Alex, you can't ignore me forever." The radio wasn't plugged in. It sat on my desk, glowing faintly, its speaker emitting a low hum. "I know about the accident," the voice said. My stomach dropped. It was referring to something I'd buried years ago, a mistake that left a man injured and me walking away unseen. I hadn't told anyone. "I can make it right," the voice said. "How?" I whispered, unable to resist. "Turn me on tomorrow night, and you'll see." I almost didn't, but curiosity overwhelmed fear. The following night, I turned the radio back on. Static crackled before the voice returned, calm as ever. "You'll find him at the old diner, sitting by the window," it said. I went, and there he was, the man from the accident, alive, unharmed, and somehow unchanged by the years. "How?" I asked the radio when I got home. "Some questions are better left unanswered," it replied. "The radio hasn't spoken since. It sits on my shelf, silent. But sometimes, late at night, I hear faint static, as if it's waiting for me to turn the dial again." Thank you for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel, like it, and don't forget to leave a comment. See you in the next video. Good luck!